Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video, as Nigel Farage has the nerve to attack a Prime Minister who actually grew up in a working class household of having no connection to working people, whereas he's considered one of them. I'd just like to remind people exactly where Farage came from and how he lives his life even today. It is true that a lot of working class people think Farage is one of them, but just as with Boris Johnson, they're looking at a character, an actor who played a part on television, because Farage has never even expressed any understanding of the problems working people face. It's a con. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So after Labour's Ellie Reeves called Farage out for being a privately educated stockbroker and career politician, which is 100% true, Farage fired back by challenging Starmer to go to a North of England working man's club with him to see who can better connect to voters. And indeed, this is the tragedy of the con. Such a visit would probably be a disaster for Starmer. There would be nothing scientific about the test because they wouldn't be going to working man's club where no one knew either of them. Both Farage and Starmer are well known in terms of their media representation. People would already have made their minds up. Yet although Starmer will not have personally experienced the problems of struggling working people for many years, he has done. Farage has no experience of this, ever, and it shows. When people who are struggling think Farage represents them, I would say ask yourself, what does he say to make you think that? So he never talks about the problems of, say, juggling the payment of bills because you're never able to keep on top of them. You know, I remember times when you just literally had to wait for the internet to go off before you paid your bill because you couldn't keep on top of everything. So it was always a case of pay the bill when the service gets cut. Or how to keep yourselves clean when you can't afford gas. That is because it's never been his experience. He's never even known people with that experience. Starmer's known that in his youth. I've known it in the past. Farage never has. Although he may have grown up, you know, with issues, like he had an alcoholic father for a period, so it was not... But it was a wealthy background he came from. Wealthy enough to send him to private school. He left to get a well-paid job as a stockbroker. So it wasn't even like he had a good upbringing and then had any struggles in his own life as an adult. He didn't. He's never struggled to pay a bill in his life or keep a roof over his head. A few years ago, after Brexit was certain and Farage's political career was uncertain, and despite being a multi-millionaire, he still took money from Aaron Banks, his Brexit brony, in order to fund his lavish lifestyle. This is a multi-millionaire who couldn't work out how to fund his own lifestyle without handouts from even wealthier patrons. This man has nothing in common with working people. Nothing at all. Standard behaviour for most of us. If suddenly your income looks a bit uncertain, you cut back. And he could afford to cut back a lot. No, I need handouts. I need handouts. He's a rich scrounger who has the nerve to attack poor people struggling with the cost of living. That's who he really is. A couple of years ago, he had a massive tantrum about losing his millionaire's account. I won't be able to cope with that business account. He was allowed a business account. He was even allowed a business account with the same bank. He just wasn't allowed his millionaire's account. But this was a tantrum so severe that he ended up getting his way. He claimed he was doing it for ordinary people as well. Oh no, this is about ordinary people being debanking. I'm just using this as an example. Soon as he got his way, dropped the whole thing. What has he said about debanking since? Nothing. Spent his 60th birthday at a venue so exclusive that you or I would go bankrupt just walking the street outside. Not that it matters. But although Starmer comes across as incredibly awkward in front of the cameras and sounds a bit posh, and the knighthood certainly doesn't help perceptions, he actually came from a working class background. The fact that he went to a selective school was not down to wealth. No one paid for it. Well, the state paid for it like it did with everyone else's education. It's just down to the fact the education system was set up like that at the time, and he was bright and hard-working and qualified for the 11 plus. Despite people's views of how he's doing in government, and there's a growing list of genuine grievances, he is literally a working class kid made good. Both of his parents had working class jobs. He grew up in a working class household, which struggled with bills at times. That he became the country's top lawyer is down to opportunities and graft, which included periods of giving others in need a leg up as well. Famously acted for the NUM, represented striking miners, but also represented some for free when they needed it. He gave free advice to the people who successfully sued McDonald's. Starmer and Farage in this respect are actually like yin and yang, really. The public perception of Starmer fits more with the reality of Farage's background, and the public perception of Farage actually fits more with Starmer's background. But it is completely backwards. It's a contrick facilitated by the media. So I go back to why some people, some working class people, think Farage is one of them. He doesn't have their background. He doesn't live like them. He doesn't even talk about the struggles they face. I can understand, you can come from a rich background and you can, have a life where you don't personally suffer from the bills, but you can still find out how others live. You can still become knowledgeable about how others live and talk about that. But he doesn't put that effort in, which is why he's never able to talk in detail about those struggles. But the people he claims to represent, they think he does because he's good at pretending to blame others for their problems. But when does he ever actually talk about the problems? See, with him, it's all about blame. I challenge people to read a transcript of a Farage speech. He's giving one today. This is what sort of prompted this. Find a transcript of the speech when he's given it, or a past one. And get a green and a red pen. How about this? Underline all of the passages in green where he talks about actual problems, and then all of the passages in red where he blames others for those problems. There will not be very much green, and there'll be a whole lot of red. He doesn't talk about the details of what struggling to pay bills looks like. He never talks about the economics of buying groceries. In fact, he's colleagues with a man who genuinely is from a working class background, but went native some years ago, who claims that people crying about the cost of living are greedy for spending more than 30p a meal feeding themselves. The guy he appointed to run the party's financial affairs is a billionaire. His deputy leader is a decamillionaire, also living as an immigrant, but never mind that now. He and all of his associates and holders of key positions in Reform UK are all, without exception, privately educated multimillionaires. All of them. Lee Anderson is kept on as a sort of mascot because he's from a particular background that they pretend to care about. But as I say, he's gone native in return for well-paid gigs with first Boris Johnson and then Nigel Farage. Farage doesn't speak for working people. He doesn't call out the problems they're facing, much less offer up solutions. He's just very good at blaming others for the problems that he never actually details. And then people ignore the fact he's not describing their problems, because he's always talking about them having problems. It was the same with Boris Johnson, an even posher and wealthier spiv, who also created this character that wasn't really him. Boris Johnson really went for it, even gave himself a different name, Boris Johnson instead of Alex, right? Where Johnson and Farage succeed is that they are very comfortable in front of the camera. It's that confidence that a privileged upbringing breeds, right? They're very comfortable in front of the camera. Confidence, a media machine that helps you out. That's all you need to con an entire nation. They would never have succeeded in winning working class people over if they had to do it in person. Starmer actually, for all his many faults, comes across as much more the sort of normal behaviour of someone from an ordinary background, where I think his nervousness sometimes comes from the fact he knows that at any minute he could trip up very, very badly and it could cost him a lot. Because that's what it's like for most of us. We know that in life, if we really mess up, we really mess up. Whereas for someone from certain backgrounds like Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, messing up's just like an inconvenience. It just sets you back a little bit, if that. Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, they spent years cultivating a character on television. They acted a part. So that when they finally had to meet ordinary people in the flesh, their character took over. They didn't have to win those people over. They'd already done it because those people felt they already knew them from the act put on television. So there was never any challenge. Whereas Starmer's got the opposite problem, of course. He's had those struggles, albeit many years ago. He didn't ride to wealth on a silver spoon. It was his own efforts along with favourable conditions. Because that's the difference, isn't it? It's very hard for someone from the sort of privileged background that Johnson and Farage have to fail in life. It's possible. You can fall into drink, drugs, gambling. I mean, you can look at Lawrence Fox. But it's very, very difficult. they're set up to succeed, no matter how stupid or lazy they are. You know, the ones who fail are the rare exceptions. Whereas someone from more ordinary backgrounds will definitely need hard work. You really need to be very determined. You will also need favourable winds now and then. That is the difference. You know, they are set up to succeed to the point where you have to be a spectacular idiot to fail. The rest of us are set up to fail to the point where you have to be incredibly determined to succeed, or very lucky on the lottery. But this also highlights the importance of perception in politics. Perception's everything. Farage has got no connection to struggling working people at all. No connection. He doesn't even ask them about it. Nigel Farage does not even ask when he meets working class people. It's always him. He doesn't talk, he doesn't ask them about their problems. He doesn't bother to learn about them. He could not possibly stand up to someone questioning him about the real problems people face. But nobody asks him because they assume that, oh, because he's talking about our problems all the time, of course he must know them. Don't be stupid. Why would I ask him? He's talking about them all the time. He must be an expert. It's a con. It's all a con. Politics is the art of getting lots of people who don't meet you to buy into a brand without looking too carefully at the books. And Farage is a master of it, helped very much by a complicit media. And he uses those skills and those connections in the media in order to pick the pockets of working people and then tell them what a disgrace it is that someone's making them poor. It's always annoying when people aren't properly informed because it means people vote for things which they think are good but are actually harmful. But Farage is one of those people, he's not just amoral, he's actually immoral. I often don't say that about politicians because I think many of even the bad ones don't intend harm, they just don't care enough to avoid it. But some really are malicious, and Farage is one of them. His entire political life is a con, and a dangerous one at that. He's already done immense harm to the country, and yet keeps getting richer from it. Like at least with the Tories, when they fail, they suffer reputational damage. And at a certain point, when Labour get their act together, they fall as a result of the damage they've done. Farage damages people's lives and somehow only gets stronger from it. He hurts people and then says, what a disgrace. Punches people in the face and says, it's absolutely disgusting that people are punching you in the face. It's not me though, it's them over there. Absolutely sickens me. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.